The nights on Coruscant no longer brought rest to Anakin Skywalker. Whenever he closed his eyes, he was dragged into an abyss of distorted images. Screams, fire, faces in despair. Padme appeared in his nightmares, pale, fragile, pleading for help. He woke up sweaty, with his heart burning, but the torment remained engraved in his mind. With each passing dawn, the fear of losing the woman he loved grew like a shadow that no light of morning could dispel. On one of those nights, the nightmare almost became reality. In the midst of delirium, Anakin dreamed that enemies were attacking Padme. His body reacted before his consciousness. His hand, clenched and suffocated by rage, reached for her neck while he slept. Padme woke up frightened, pushing him away forcefully. She screamed in despair, "Anakin, what are you doing? Anakin, wake up! Wake up, Anakin!" The shock of the moment brought Anakin back, horrified at what he was about to do. Trembling, he begged for forgiveness, holding her as if she were the last anchor in the world. In that instant, he realized he was losing control. The next morning, guilt still consumed him. Padme tried to talk, and even though Anakin couldn't face her, he followed her advice and sought help from his master. He turned to Obi-Wan not only as a master, but as a brother. With a broken voice, he confessed his torments, fearing that his bond with Padme was being threatened by the darkness within him. Obi-Wan, though surprised by the gravity of what had happened, remained firm. He recommended that they seek Yoda's guidance, for only the Master's wisdom could illuminate the path in such a dark moment. Before Yoda, and in the middle of the Jedi Council chamber, Anakin exposed his pain. He spoke about the nightmares, about the fear of loss, and about how his own strength seemed to turn against him. Yoda, with his wise and weary eyes, replied calmly, "Fear of losing, strong in you it is, but fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate, and hate to destruction." The advice was not new, but at that moment it felt even heavier. Yoda then suggested something beyond the usual practices, a rare and profound exercise of guided meditation, where mind and force would intertwine in a dangerous but necessary way. The training began in silence and right there, in the heart of the Jedi Temple, in the same room where the Masters gathered. Anakin sat between Obi-Wan and Yoda for days on end, plunging into the Force, following their guidance as much as possible, until results finally appeared. His breathing was slow, controlled. Gradually, the visions began to emerge. At first, they were fragments of memories. His childhood on Tatooine, his mother's sweet gaze, the weight of slave chains. But soon, the flow intensified. The past mixed with the present, and suddenly images of the future began to open like lightning in the midst of a storm. In Anakin's mind, some even appeared like holographic projections. Others were so vivid that he seemed to be there. He believed he was there. Anakin's body trembled. His lips murmured broken words. "Mother, forgive me. I destroyed them." Obi-Wan closed his eyes, recognizing the weight of that memory. He did not know about the Tusken massacre, but hearing Anakin confess in trance brought back the gravity of the act. Yoda, however, furrowed his brow. The revelation of such hidden darkness lit a warning sign that echoed through the Force. Between one hallucination and another, Anakin screamed Padme's name. He revealed her pregnancy, something Yoda did not know until then. The diminutive master turned to Obi-Wan, who merely kept the silence of one who had carried that secret for some time. Anakin's breathing quickened, and his words became more chaotic. "I can't lose her. Not again. Not like my mother." The weight of his pain filled the room, turning the meditation into an emotional battle. It was then that the future revealed itself in a cruel way. Anakin began to describe scenes neither of the two masters had ever witnessed. He spoke of red lightsabers illuminating the Jedi Temple corridors, children begging for mercy and being swallowed by shadows. Obi-Wan held him by the shoulders, but the young man did not stop. "They scream. They burn. The temple burns." The words echoed like prophecies. Inside Anakin's mind, he heard it all with unreal astonishment. It was as if he were in that very room, but without the masters. And before him stood a woman, a beautiful woman who looked like Padme, but at the same time that she was there, she also seemed nothing more than a holographic projection. Like a long-recorded message, this woman told him of the destruction the future would bring, and it reverberated into the real world with Anakin screaming and shouting, worrying the two masters who guided him. Yoda, with his mind immersed in the Force, perceived something even deeper. There was a dark presence accompanying those visions. They were not just projected fears. Someone, somewhere, was influencing and distorting Anakin's dreams. The trail of the dark side was imprinted in every detail of the visions, like a web manipulating his soul. The images intensified. Anakin, in his mind, listened to what the woman said, and suddenly saw himself kneeling before a hooded figure, swearing loyalty. He saw a galaxy plunged into war under the banner of a new empire. He saw Padme crying in pain, reaching out to him, while he, consumed by darkness, pulled away. Finally, a glimpse. Two children, separated, hidden in the corners of the galaxy, destined to carry the weight of his legacy. That woman, she was one of those children, of this he was certain. Obi-Wan, disturbed, could not hold back his tears. He recognized in every detail the ruin that might come, but the worst of all was the idea that Anakin himself would cast the Force into darkness. Yoda, in silence, closed his eyes once more, understanding that those visions were not mere delusions. They were echoes of a possible future, shaped by forces Anakin did not yet understand, but that already surrounded him. When the last session ended, Anakin collapsed exhausted, fainting, as if he had fought an invisible war. The masters looked at each other, aware that the fate of the galaxy was becoming increasingly fragile. Obi-Wan wished to protect his brother-in-arms, but Yoda knew, if they did not find the true enemy behind those visions, not only Anakin, but the entire Order could be doomed. The silence that followed was heavier than any battle. Anakin slept, finally in peace, but only for moments. His masters, however, carried the certainty that the war approaching would not only be against armies, but against the heart of the one who was supposed to be the chosen one. The future was in motion, and nothing seemed capable of stopping it. Anakin awoke to the sound of pulsating energy around him. His eyes, still heavy with exhaustion, slowly adjusted to reality. He was trapped inside an energy cell, without weapons, without contact with anyone, only the constant hum that kept him confined. Confused and outraged, he immediately stood up, approaching the glowing barriers. He struck them forcefully, frustration already rising within him. He was without his saber and powerless inside. What does this mean? I demand to see my masters. His voice echoed through the narrow corridor, but the answer came only with calculated footsteps approaching. Obi-Wan appeared, his expression grave, as if he carried a burden that consumed him. He approached slowly, stopping in front of the cell, not daring to look directly into his apprentice's eyes. Anakin, I know this seems unfair, but it was necessary. His voice, though firm, carried pain. The young Jedi narrowed his eyes, feeling the weight of betrayal. Necessary? You imprison me like a criminal. Why are you doing this to me? It's unfair. Obi-Wan took a deep breath and, in a calm tone, began to explain the reason. He told him about the visions, about how what Anakin had described in trance seemed so real that it shook not only him but also Yoda. He spoke of the details that could not be ignored. The temple in flames, Padme in agony, the birth of hidden children, and the rise of the final Sith. They were more than dreams, Anakin. They were echoes that resonated like truths not yet written. Real enough for us to begin an investigation and bring everything to the Council. You told us you would become something terrifying, and we felt that the Force knew it. The silence that followed only intensified the revolt within the young knight. With sorrow, Obi-Wan added, After speaking with Master Yoda, we decided it would be safer to keep you here until the Council meets and decides what to do. The sentence fell like a dagger. Anakin stepped back, in disbelief. His own brother-in-arms now spoke of keeping him imprisoned, as if he were a threat. The fire of rage grew inside him, and his voice exploded. "You treat me as if I were an enemy, after everything I've done for the Republic." Seeing the fury grow, Obi-Wan approached the energy field, his hands trembling. "Padme will come as soon as everything is explained. But you must understand." During that meditation, we felt something terrible. A dark presence. "Anakin, it wasn't you. It was something using you, influencing your thoughts. That's why we need to be careful. We need patience." The pleading tone in his voice almost broke him. For a moment, it seemed Obi-Wan would cry. But Anakin, still blinded by injustice, only clenched his fist in anger. Obi-Wan, reluctantly, added another official reason for the imprisonment. "Besides, in the trance, you confessed something terrible. The massacre of the Tuscans." Anakin's blood froze. He stepped closer to the barrier, eyes blazing. "How do you know that?" "Only 2 people knew." He stopped before revealing the names, swallowing the truth. He knew that if he spoke, he would put Padme and Shmi in memory at the center of dangerous suspicions. Obi-Wan, confused, pressed, 2 people? Who? "Anakin, tell me." But the young man firmly denied. "No, that doesn't matter." The atmosphere became unbearable. Obi-Wan sighed, defeated, and finally said he must leave, for the council demanded his presence. Some clone guards positioned themselves farther ahead, ensuring that Anakin was not left completely unwatched. Before leaving, Obi-Wan was caught off guard by the desperate question. "And the girl? The girl from the visions. Who is she? What does it mean?" The master closed his eyes, visibly affected, but answered only, "Patience, Anakin. The council will discuss this. I'll return as soon as possible." Alone, the young man sank to the cold floor of the cell. The silence was broken only by the hum of energy and the distant echo of voices he could not hear. His thoughts tangled. Anger, fear, love, and frustration. The sense of abandonment consumed him. With each beat of his heart, doubt grew. Was he being punished for his mistakes, or was he the victim of something much greater? His body trembled, not from cold, but from the emotional storm tearing him apart inside. He knew only Padme and Palpatine knew about the Tuscan massacre, but neither would ever tell. Anakin was confused and missed Padme, but he could not stop remembering the girl from the vision. The girl who looked like Padme herself. On the upper floor of the temple, the meeting began. Only the main masters were present. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Plo Koon, and Ki-Adi-Mundi. The atmosphere was heavy, as if the very fate of the Order hung over that room. Obi-Wan reported in detail Anakin's visions, his confession, and the sense of the dark presence. Each word seemed to deepen the wound opening in the heart of the council. Mace Windu was the first to respond, his deep voice echoing. "We cannot ignore this. His visions are too dangerous to be treated as mere illusions. What if he is already being manipulated by the enemy? What if the fall has already begun?" Ki-Adi-Mundi agreed, recalling Anakin's history of impulsiveness. Plo Koon, however, asked for caution, reminding them that the young man had also saved countless lives in battles where anyone else would have failed. Finally, all eyes turned to Yoda. The old master, eyes half closed, seemed to carry the weight of millennia on his shoulders. When he spoke, his voice was low but firm, resonating like the Force itself. Dark, the presence in Skywalker is, not his but through him, someone his destiny is manipulating. To darkness he will be pushed, if something unthought we do not. The words hung in the air, laden with prophecy. The silence after his speech was absolute. No master dared interrupt. All knew the line between hope and ruin was becoming far too thin. Yoda lowered his head, murmuring almost to himself, "The future is restless, and through Skywalker it passes." The phrase echoed in everyone's mind, while below, in his lonely cell, Anakin closed his eyes, feeling the weight of invisible chains that bound him more than any energy barrier. The fate of the galaxy was beginning to be decided there. The days in the cell became torture for Anakin. Each hour dragged on as if it were a silent trial, and the weight of isolation consumed him. Frustration grew with every breath, with every glance at the cold walls lit by the energy field. He felt that the council had abandoned him, that even Obi-Wan no longer trusted him. The silence of the corridors was broken only by the metallic sound of guards changing shifts. It was as if the universe had decided to leave him alone with his ghosts. When Padme finally entered, escorted by the security masters, Anakin's heart nearly gave out. Even on the other side of the energy cell, Anakin noticed she was pale, tired, but her eyes shone with concern. "Anakin," she said softly, as if his name were capable of crossing all barriers. He moved closer to the cell, wishing to cross that wall of energy just to touch her. For a few moments, there were no words, only shared pain. Then she took a deep breath and told him what the masters had said. Padme explained that Yoda and Obi-Wan believed a terrible presence was manipulating his mind. She said they did not see him as guilty, but as someone who needed to fight against a dark influence. She spoke calmly, almost as if trying to soothe a child from a nightmare. She asked him to cooperate, to trust, to let the council help him. "They want to save you, Anakin. They don't want to destroy you." But the answer came as an explosion. "Save me?" Anakin shouted, his eyes blazing with rage. "They chained me like a criminal, and now you repeat their words. Padme, are you on their side too? Will you betray me like all the others?" His tone was accusatory, harsh, as if every syllable were a blade. Padme trembled, but held her ground. Her heart ached, but she knew she could not give up. The pain of the accusation did not make her retreat. With a voice firm yet gentle, she replied, "I will never be against you, Anakin. But if there really is something dark trying to control your mind, we need to fight it together. You and me. Trust me." The words, spoken with such love, managed to pierce part of the armor of fury. He took a deep breath, still trembling, and finally let slip a confession he had kept in silence since the visions. "In my visions, I saw a woman," he began, hesitant. "She looked like you, Padme. It was like looking at the reflection of our love in the future. I knew that she was our daughter." Padme brought her hand to her mouth, surprised, her eyes filling with emotion. Anakin continued, his voice broken. "It wasn't just one child. I saw two. Twins. Our family, Padme. The future that awaits us." The senator was in shock. A wave of surprise and hope invaded her, mixed with fear. Her heart beat faster at the revelation, but she smiled through her tears. Then, "It's not only pain the visions show. There is life, Anakin. There is hope. If it's true, we must believe in that future." Her words brought a spark of calm to his heart, something he had not felt in a long time. For moments, the two believed that the future could be more than shadows. But soon the guards announced the end of the visit. Padme cast one last look, full of strength and tenderness, silently promising she would not give up on him. Anakin remained still, with the echo of her words spinning in his mind. When he was alone again, an idea grew inside him. If in the visions he had found answers, he could seek more. He decided he would spend his days trying to recreate, on his own, the steps of the advanced meditation. The first days were exhausting. Without Yoda's or Obi-Wan's guidance, Anakin sank into deep silences that nearly destroyed him. His mind fragmented, fear consumed him, and at times he gave up before resuming. But little by little, the Force responded, opening breaches of light and darkness, until finally the figure he sought reappeared. The young woman, resembling Padme but carrying something greater, stood before him once more. Meanwhile, the council was divided in tense debates. On one side, Yoda and Obi-Wan and 3 other masters believed Anakin could still be saved and that executing him would be yielding to the darkness itself. On the other, Mace Windu, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, and the remaining masters argued that he was a growing threat. The visions seemed to confirm that, because of Skywalker, the order would fall. Windu, firm, declared it was better to eliminate him before it was too late. The Jedi Order fractured under the weight of an impossible decision. The news escaped the walls of the temple and reached the Senate. Chancellor Palpatine, alone in his chambers, let slip a cold smile. No, they cannot destroy my apprentice. Walking through the hall, he reflected quietly. I have worked too much on his mind, prepared him too much to let him slip away now. Skywalker is the key to my empire. If they dare to judge him, I will free him myself. The shadow of his decision grew. In the cell, the vision took shape clearer than ever. Anakin saw the young woman clearly, and now she introduced herself. My name is Leia, she said firmly, and the Force vibrated around him. It was as if destiny itself had gained a voice. It was far more than a woman or an illusion caused by the vision. It was the Force itself taking a form Anakin could understand and hear. They spoke at length, and she showed him images of what was to come. The temple destroyed, Padme in tears, children being hunted. Every word she spoke was a blade of pain, but also of truth. In the final moments, Leia spoke with absolute seriousness. The future I saw will not bring peace. The Jedi Order will fall, Padme will die, and the Sith will control everything. The Chancellor is the Dark Lord who manipulates your mind. If you do not break free, you will be the instrument of destruction. The shock was devastating, but it also brought clarity. The vision ended, and Anakin awoke drenched in sweat and with his mind ablaze. Breathing deeply, he called to the guards. I want a meeting with the council. I have something to confess. The silence that followed was the prelude to a revelation that would change everything. The news that Anakin had asked to confess deeply shook the Jedi Council. For days, the Masters had been divided between executing him or saving him, but now the young man asked to expose himself before them all. Doubts echoed like thunder in the sacred chamber. Some feared a trap, others saw in it the opportunity to understand what was really happening. After intense discussions, they decided to allow him to be brought in, still bound by the Force containment shackles. When Anakin entered the circular council chamber, his footsteps resounded on the polished floor as if it were a final judgment. He lifted his eyes and saw all the Masters gathered, some present physically, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu, while the others appeared through holograms. The atmosphere was heavy, and the silence was cutting. There, in the center, he looked small, but his presence ignited the room like a sun about to explode. The Masters began questioning him. What he wanted to confess, what he had been keeping in silence. But before Anakin could open his mouth, the doors burst wide with a crash. Chancellor Palpatine entered the scene surrounded by his entourage and some guards, with all the extravagance of his position. His voice echoed through the hall. If this trial is just, then I, as leader of the Republic, will be here to ensure that Skywalker has a worthy defense. Of course, if this truly is a trial, but it looks far more like a trap for an innocent man. Immediately, Mace Windu and other Masters protested against the intrusion. This is a matter of the Jedi Order, Windu shouted, his fist already clenched on his knees. But Palpatine remained calm, theatrical. I am the supreme representative of the people you swore to protect, and if this man is accused, then he shall have in me a defender. He too is the people. Obi-Wan looked at Anakin, searching for an answer, and the young man surprised everyone. Let him stay. I need him to hear as well. The debate nearly turned to chaos, but Yoda raised his hand and demanded silence. His half-closed eyes swept across the room, and his deep voice resounded. In the Force, something moves. A hidden path, reveal itself it may. Stay, the Chancellor must. Observe, we shall. Reluctantly, the other Masters withdrew, accepting that perhaps it was wiser to allow it. Anakin, however, shuddered when Palpatine whispered in his ear, I am ready to take you out of here, young Skywalker. Just say the word. Palpatine, in a loud voice, reinforced his position. I will defend your innocence. But it was Anakin who spoke. He asked for the shackles to be removed, and seeing Yoda's agreement, the guards obeyed. Standing free, the young man breathed deeply and began. My visions have shown me terrible things. I saw the fall of the Order, the death of the woman I love, the darkness covering the galaxy. Perhaps you are right to fear me. Perhaps I am indeed under the influence of something evil." Palpatine tried to intervene, exclaiming, "No, Anakin, they want to convince you that you are weak, but you are the strongest among them." At that moment, something burned inside the young man. With a sudden gesture of his hand, Anakin hurled Palpatine against the wall with the Force. The impact was devastating. The entourage erupted in commotion. Mace Windu immediately drew his purple saber, advancing. "He attacked the Chancellor. We cannot allow this." Anakin raised his hand and held back Windu's advance with the Force, shoving him backward. Kenobi rushed to intercept the deadly strike approaching, and Yoda leapt between them, absorbing the impact with his small stature but immense power. "Stop, Windu! Observe, we must!" Yoda shouted, holding the purple saber with his green blade. The hall became a field of tension ready to explode. Meanwhile, Anakin approached Palpatine, furious. "It was you!" he shouted, his voice taken by rage and clarity at the same time. "It was you my vision showed me. You are the Sith who manipulates my mind." Palpatine, fallen, tried to maintain his mask. "Lies! He has been poisoned by visions. Do not believe him." The guards of the entourage drew their weapons, but Anakin quickly disarmed them with the Force, knocking them down without taking their lives. The young man advanced step by step, until Palpatine, cornered, revealed his true face. Blue lightning burst from his hands, striking Anakin and hurling him across the hall. The shock made the Masters stop their fight, and all looked in astonishment. Even Mace Windu recoiled, eyes wide. "My God! He is a Sith." The secret was revealed before them all. Palpatine rose, his robes burned by his own lightning. "Then yes, I have been discovered. But it does not matter. The Republic is mine, and you all will fall before the power of the Sith. And you, Skywalker, have been a great disappointment. I worked so hard on you, and in the end you failed like all the others." He brandished a red saber, the flaming blade illuminating the hall. The final confrontation had begun. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Windu aligned side by side, sabers raised, ready to attack. Anakin just behind them, since he was without a lightsaber. The duel began with intense movements. First, Windu blocked Palpatine's lightning with his saber, deflecting it to the walls. Then Yoda leapt in agile spins, forcing the Sith to retreat with quick, precise strikes. Next, Obi-Wan intercepted a treacherous thrust and momentarily disarmed Palpatine's guard. Without hesitation, Yoda and Windu synchronized a double strike that nearly tore the saber from the enemy's hands. And it was in that moment that Anakin advanced with renewed fury. Anakin had no saber, so he fought with his own fists. Punch after punch, the Chancellor grew more cornered. Punch to the nose, then a leap from behind and a sweeping kick. Next, the Force hurled objects at the Chancellor, who had already dropped his saber in the battle and could not release the lightning properly, since Yoda was blocking it. Then he was surprised by such a swift advance from Anakin from behind that he only realized when he had already been grabbed and slammed headfirst into the ground by a move that seemed ripped from WWE itself, smashing him headfirst into the concrete floor. The Chancellor was immediately knocked out and, now revealed in his true form, was imprisoned. After the chaos, the room breathed in silence, as if the Force itself had witnessed the final judgment. Anakin, breathless, felt the rage slowly dissolve. And then time passed, and he could finally be reunited with Padme, running to where he was. The two looked at each other with tears and hope. Entwined in their gaze, they understood that, for the first time, the future could be different. The darkness had been exposed, and the galaxy had a chance.